Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner Podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend.
Oh, all right. You're still doing it. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. The Key and Peele sketch.
I've never seen that. Yeah. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. He says that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we watched that over the weekend.
The Key and Peele sketch where Keegan Michael Key comes as
Michael Jackson.
This week we're doing Antoine Fuqua's Michael Jackson biopic, Michael. We went and saw this on a boys' trip.
We did, yeah.
Down to Dana Point. And it was in the theater. It was funny before the movie started, as the studio slates were showing on the screen. Someone in the audience went hee hee, and then on screen in the movie, Michael Jackson went hee hee.
Yes,
it was so awesome.
Everyone that was like, that was perfect. That was so funny. Great way to start the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish everybody would have danced and sang a little bit, because I thought the crowd might be like that, but
our crowd was pretty into it. I was definitely caught up in it.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I would love to go see this with a bunch of people who are singing and dancing. That could be a fun experience.
Oh, I couldn't contain myself. There were several moments where, when he was doing, this is our spoiler discussion.
Film.
If you want spoiler free, you can go watch our first thoughts. Even though I said this in my first thoughts, I was like, what am I spoiling for you? That Beat It happens? That he does the Motown Billie Jean performance? Oh, spoiler. I don't know. Have you never seen Michael Jackson doing Billie Jean on stage at Motown? If not, go watch it right now on YouTube.
Yeah, you can. His whole life is on the internet. You can find anything you want about him.
But I have that Motown performance kind of tattooed in my brain. I watched it so many times as a kid growing up.
Yeah.
And so when that was happening, I literally said out loud as he was about to do the moonwalk, I was like, here it comes. He's about to do it. And then when he did the moonwalk, I was like, there it is. I was like, the first time he ever did it, there it is.
Yeah. No, that was great. That was great.
I was getting hyped.
It was fun. This is such a strange movie because it was so much fun, but
it works against all odds. There are so many different things that are I think working against this film.
Yes,
and it overcomes most of them. And I would say a word for this film is uneven.
Yes,
but the stuff that is good is so good that you almost don't care about the stuff that's not really working.
Well,
at least that was my experience.
I completely agree. The stuff that's not working is not bad. When you have an uneven film, or a TV show, one is usually really bad. The main story and the main plot of this movie is totally. So it's fine. It's totally fine. It's written well and it's structured well, and there's setups and there's payoffs, and there's a journey that Michael goes on in the movie. It's just kind of vanilla, it's oh, okay, there's nothing really that we didn't really know about it. And I think the problem is that it doesn't take any chances.
Yeah,
and as you said after the movie, this is kind of the mythical version of Michael, and it kind of feels like that. There's nothing real, or there's nothing interesting that we didn't know, and it's even it doesn't get into anything. I was really wanting to know the story of Billie Jean, and what is that?
What's the story of the song? What happened?
That could be a whole section of this movie, is meeting the girl, and then obviously he sleeps with her, and then she what happened, what could happen, and what lesson could be learned from that. So but that wasn't even in there. It's everything is just so glossed over, and it's all just in his house. Like I felt like we
the
spent
plot and the screenplay and the scene work is thin.
It's very thin.
It's just sort of like, hey, it's just enough to string together these moments, these like musical sequences, and
and then the musical sequences are just so good.
Yeah,
and Jaafar Jackson is so good. It's insane.
I think that we covered this on our predictions episode for 2026 predictions. And I think for the most part, we were right about the fact that, like, I think that what I haven't gone back and checked. I think what I said was something like, I would imagine this movie is going to be a pretty by the numbers biopic in the same vein as Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's like, it's not really breaking the mold of biopics. It's sort of following the formula and not really doing anything new with the genre. It's certainly not trying to tackle the subject matter of the controversy surrounding Michael Jackson, and the allegations around the misconduct with children and the grooming and assault of children. And it's like, and I said this in my first thoughts, and it's kind of like, you get out of the movie and it's like, okay, you kind of, you have to make one or the other. If you're going to make a movie about Michael Jackson, you either have to make a movie about that stuff. And I think that movie exists, and it's called Leaving Neverland, and it's a documentary. And I think that but like, if you're going to make a movie about like how great was the music that Michael Jackson made and how great were his live performance, you can't tack on in that movie, like, also this stuff might've happened. Like, you can't just sort of like have that be a footnote in the film. Like that's it's too big of a, also maybe this to, and so I think that what Jonathan Logan and Antoine Fuqua wound up doing is making a film about the myth of there's these people like Freddie Mercury, like David Bowie, like Elvis, like Bob Dylan, who create sort of a character, a public facing character that's bigger than whoever the human being is behind that character. And it sort of takes on it's in this Andy Kaufman way, it sort of takes on a life of its own, and it becomes a fully embodied performance. And I don't think any of the people that I just listed off did that more than Michael Jackson. Like, everything about Michael Jackson was this curated, meticulously crafted character when it came to the public facing persona. And very little was really known or understood about the actual human being underneath that, even though like people really tried to get an idea of like, oh, okay, there was this abusive dynamic between him and his father, and certainly being famous from the time he was like 10 didn't lend itself to him being able to have a normal experience as a kid or even as an adult. But beyond that, I mean, that's all pretty, like, we see that story play out a lot in the entertainment industry, where like somebody who's been famous their whole life and how weird that can be. And, maybe that's the connection to people like Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin, who, whatever.
Right.
But I think that like where this movie really succeeds is when it's actually not trying to tell us any deeper truths about the man, when it's just showing us like Michael Jackson as the public came to know him. And the performer, the artist, the creative genius, and when we're watching Jaafar Jackson do this amazing, this mind-blowing recreation of that.
I wonder if this movie, I'm just thinking out loud. I wonder if you could if this movie would have been better from his driver's perspective. His driver was an interesting character. They never really got into him that much, but he seemed like Michael's always looking for a father figure in this movie, because his father is just not a good person. Right. And he seems to be one of them. The other record label guy, he was one of them. But if you do it from the driver's perspective, you can kind of avoid those things but you still get like a personal view of Michael, so he can be at those big moments. But then he's at least a little bit of a distance away from all the craziness.
He's still he's getting to see what it's like behind the scenes,
right?
But he's still a fan.
Exactly.
You know, he's
So,
still
like,
in awe of this
yeah,
guy who he
then it
drives around for a living.
yeah, then it does become a little bit more of like, oh, this is the guy who knew him, but he still didn't really know him.
Yeah.
And
He was
you
closer
still
to him than most. He was
right,
close enough to
right.
him to be present for these scenes that we wanna see, these behind the
Yeah,
scenes moments, but I think it's a really interesting idea. I think it's something that could have made the movie around the musical sequences better. I think it
right,
would've like
right.
because I think that the movie that exists around it it's just sort of like a paint by numbers
Yeah,
by
yeah,
when I go back and rewatch Bohemian Rhapsody, it's a movie that with, like, real diminishing returns. Like, it's a movie
mm,
that,
mm,
all that's really there to latch on to are, like, a handful of musical sequences where it's like, I like watching Rami Malek do the Live Aid performance. I
yeah,
like watching, like, a
awesome.
few of the montages and stuff, but, like, the movie itself is, like, there's not much there to sink my
Mm,
teeth into, and I think that's how this movie is gonna age too, is it's like, I don't think that there's a whole lot there
yeah,
beyond enjoying Jaafar Jackson's kind of really amazing work
mhm,
and these musical sequences and I appreciate I think that what you're talking about reminds me of more of something like what Baz Luhrmann did with Elvis, where it's like, let's use a
yeah,
different character's
yeah,
by having the Colonel be our sort of perspective character,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
still I think because Baz Luhrmann was making a movie about the myth and the legend of Elvis
right,
Presley, not
right.
a grounded he was trying to capture the energy of what
Yeah,
that was like, and I think that he does a good job of the sort of superhero comic book nature of it
yeah,
all. And
yeah,
I think that if anything, Antoine Fuqua could have stood to stylize this a little bit more.
yeah,
And and
yeah, I think he
yeah.
could have too. It
Mhm.
was and I said this too, the pacing for me on everything outside of the performances was just so slow, and it was so like everything was drawn out, and it was just kind of drug out, and it overstayed its welcome.
Mhm.
Almost every scene was kind of that way, and I think if you kind of up the pacing, and kind of, I mean, Baz Luhrmann is a very stylized filmmaker. Antoine Fuqua is not that stylized. I don't
Sure.
mean that as a dig. It just that's just kind of how it is.
Mhm.
Antoine Fuqua is a great filmmaker. He's actually got a pretty wide variety in of his stuff. But it just felt like he could have gone a little more stylized. He could have gone a little bit more in the Baz Luhrmann direction, and
Yeah.
it could have been more interesting. It could have, and we could have gotten into if he would have upped the pacing a little bit. I think we could have gotten into some of these other stories because Michael Jackson is one of those singers that sings about his life,
Yeah.
and it's like that like, oh, this is he's talking about his own experience. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't something made up. Like, he's
Like, even the
talking about what
song
he's going through.
Thriller, like, he loved old movies and,
Yeah,
he loved Vincent Price, which
yeah,
he's just which is a weird thing for, a young
yeah.
black man in the 1970s to be like, I'm a big Vincent Price fan."
Right, right.
You know? But, he liked watching old that's a big
Yeah,
part of the
Vincent
movie,
Price. Yeah.
him watching old films with his mom
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, Vincent
yeah,
Price is a big part of and Thriller's literally just about him being like, "I like the old
yeah,
classic horror films," you know?
yeah. Just like he's got, and black or white, right?
Mhm.
He's singing about his frustrations. Are you black or are you white? And he puts it into a song, and he's got all these, bad. It's like it's his worldview, and it's the things that are going on in his life. And that's I would love to get into more of those, the story behind the songs,
Yeah.
and I think if you could do that, I think it would make a much more interesting film between the performances.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like this style of film is it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, no.
It's one of those formats that is sort of anytime it's done, the question is like, okay, is the person in the lead role gonna get nominated for an Oscar? Is there,
Yeah,
because it's like it's become one of those ways that's like it's an easy vehicle for the lead performer to
totally,
really flex because
totally.
it's just like we all have a touch point of the character that they're portraying to be like, how accurate does this feel?
Yeah.
How much of the essence of this person are they capturing? Are they, when how immersive is it? How much is Rami Malek disappearing into Freddie Mercury? How much is Timothy Chalamet disappearing into Bob Dylan? How much is Judy or Renee Zellweger turning into Judy Garland? And like, and it is, there's sort of these tropes with it, like there's all the moments of like, you'll never do this, or like even the abusive father figure, whether that is like a manager that's really hard on the performer early on, or just an actual father that doesn't believe in them. That's a real trope in this. And the whole thing of like trying to capture the entire life, go through all of these seminal experiences that happened to them as a kid. And there's, I think the ones that really work for me in the last few years that I've seen are the ones that try to do something else with the format. And so we both really liked Better Man. And it's like, it's kind of a shame that concept was used for Robbie Williams, because it's sort of a concept that would have been potentially very good. But I mean, it's a little more complicated, because if you portray a black artist as a chimpanzee,
you couldn't.
It's much more like fraud of like, wait, what are we doing here?
What's going on?
But it is interesting that like Michael Jackson famously had a pet chimpanzee who was like one of his best friends. And this idea of being a performing monkey that Robbie Williams was trying to get at with his film Better Man, and Michael Jackson being this just sort of like wind up. I think what works for me about Better Man is it's the only one that I can think of where the main character, where they're not trying to like communicate to the audience like the genius of this artist. Like Better Man is the only one that's like, he's just some guy. He's just kind of like an average guy who like really, really, really wanted to be famous really bad. And he really wanted to impress his dad. There's that thing. And when he got famous, he just spent his whole life feeling not good enough, feeling like he's looked down on by real artists, like the guys in what's the band?
Take Five or Take That.
What's the Wonderwall band?
Oasis.
Oasis, yeah,
He wanted to be Oasis.
Yeah, he wanted to be like a real musician, like a real songwriter, And I like Better Man because I like that it's not like the film trying to be like the musical genius of Robbie Williams. It's sort of like the how did Robbie Williams pull this off? At all? How did he manage to like get by with this much drug abuse and this much like insecurity and kind of like this much mediocrity as like but that's what I like about that movie so much is it's so much more. Robbie Williams is just so much more human as a subject. Whereas people like Bob Dylan, Elton John, Freddie Mercury, and certainly Michael Jackson have this like larger than life quality where it's like, I don't know how to relate to you as a human being because you're something else. You are so I like that movies like I'm Not There and A Complete Unknown, rather than trying to tell us the life story of Robert Zimmerman and trying to encapsulate who Bob Dylan was, they're like, let's leave him as sort of an unknowable enigma and let's just try to get like a flavor, a vibe of what it was like to be around him. And I think maybe this movie could have used more of that, of just like, rather than trying to help us to understand the life story of Michael Jackson and his brothers and the Jackson 5 and Joseph Jackson, like just like lean into more of, I like your idea of like it being from the driver's point of view and just being like, what was it like just to be in the orbit of all of that while it was happening? Quincy Jones and
all the things that, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm supposed to watch this kid and he seems pretty good, but then like everything keeps getting better and better and better. And I mean, I imagine this was a real person, his driver. And I imagine he, confided in him a lot because he did seem like a father figure. Maybe he wasn't a real person, but even if he's not, you can still use that character as that way into the story that's a little bit different and kind of takes a little bit different flavor. But I mean, again, this is not a horrible movie between the performances. It's just fine. And thank goodness that Coleman Domingo plays Joseph Jackson.
Absolutely.
Because, oh man, he, as we talked about, he does a lot with very little.
I will say this. I don't know what the process was like. I know that there are stories about how Jonathan Logan had a completely different version of this film that did involve the controversies and did involve Michael going to court and all this stuff.
Yes.
And so I don't know what kind of pressure Jonathan Logan was put under as a screenwriter to restructure this thing. And but like I will say that like there were multiple scenes where I just found the dialogue to be like, again, it's serviceable. It's like just above bad, but like there were some moments where I was like, that was bad, like that was a bad line, and it was like, thank goodness that there is an actor of Coleman Domingo's caliber who is handling this very thin material and bringing a lot of and it really shows like the power of what a real amazing actor can do, where it's like Joseph Jackson doesn't have much else to say other than like, hey, I'm in charge here, I'm the manager, you everything runs through me, I'm the boss. Like he doesn't really have much else to say other than like, I'm mean, like he's just kind of like, he's kind of written as one note, and it's just like, good thing it's being played by a really watchable, entertaining, compelling performer.
Totally. And it's like he still, I mean, even when we talked about The Running Man, like he steals the show. Man, in that.
He absolutely stole the show in that movie.
I just wanted more of him, and in this, like, he does a great job.
It's like, remember how Josh Brolin's in The Running Man? And I love Josh Brolin.
I know,
but it's like he shouldn't be in that movie. Coleman Domingo should be the villain.
Honestly, that would have been so much better. But he's not a likable character in this, but every scene he's in, I'm totally glued to what he's doing. Like he's doing a great job. I don't really know why they had Miles Teller in there. I love Miles Teller.
Miles Teller.
I'm sure the next movie he'll probably be a much bigger part. But this one they didn't give him anything to do really. And it's and I agree, like they had a different beginning and an ending to this movie. Legally, they could not make that movie. They had a a settlement that they had to change, and so it did change the movie. So it's something we'll never know what would it have been like. But it does seem like they really had to make some big steps. So I think John Logan, Antoine Fuqua, they did the best with what they could, but they also kind of are wasting some talent, and maybe that is because of the changes that they had to make. But
I did like seeing Nia Long in here as Michael's mother.
I thought she was a very soft character in a very good way, because she's the antithesis to Joseph. So
and she's just one of those actors who, like, she was around a lot when we were growing up, and then she just sort of went away. And so as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh hey. And I mostly know her as like Will's girlfriend from a few episodes of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But I always remember as a kid having like a big crush on her. I was like, she's fine as hell. So when she showed up as Michael's mom, I was like, oh look. And that was, but I thought she did a nice job.
She did.
It is, in my opinion, it's unfortunate how much this film has in common with Bohemian Rhapsody. It just seems like they were chasing the same, because Bohemian Rhapsody is like the most financially successful.
This Graham King, who also did this one, so it's almost like his style that he's doing.
And like I love the Mike Myers cameo in this film, but he was hilarious. It felt like he played the exact same character that he played in Bohemian Rhapsody, just an American version of the same character. And I just was kind of like, boy, like it just felt like they were literally winking to Bohemian Rhapsody and being like, this is a sequel to Bohemian Rhapsody. And I was kind of just like, I personally, this is an unpopular opinion. I don't like Bohemian Rhapsody. I like Rami Malek's performance in that movie, but I think that it is just kind of insufferably bland. And I think that the problem with Bohemian Rhapsody, it's got the same problems that this movie has, which like apparently the brothers, the Jackson 5, were like very heavily involved in like creative decisions during the making of it. And that's what happened with Bohemian Rhapsody 2, is like the band were they were like bickering over screen time and making sure that each one of them got equal screen time, obviously underneath Freddie, that it's like Freddie's going to get the most screen time. But each one of the subsidiary members, and just doing stuff that I'm like, guys, that doesn't necessarily equate to a good movie.
No, it doesn't service the story.
It doesn't service the story. Like your egos needing to be satiated, that we're all playing an equal part in support of the Freddie Mercury story. Doesn't like that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. And I felt, unfortunately, Michael Jackson's brothers' influence on this film, because there is a little too much of the Jackson 5 for a movie about Michael Jackson. It's not that the Jackson 5 is not a very, like, the Jackson 5 in their own right are a massively influential group.
Yeah.
And obviously they launched the career of the biggest pop star of the last 100 years, maybe ever.
Yeah.
But a movie about the Jackson 5, in my opinion, is kind of like a separate film. Like a movie about Michael Jackson as a pop star, I think, should maybe have like a 20-minute sequence at the beginning about the Jackson 5. And then the rest of the film should be Michael Jackson as an adult finding his own way and because it is a film ultimately about him. And obviously it's a two-parter. And this first one is about Michael asserting his own identity separate from the family, and especially his dad, and figuring out how to look his dad in the eye. And that's the kind of the motif of like, that we're going with the whole movie. But it did just feel like I could feel the brothers being like, hey, don't forget about us. Like we're like, like there was just like, they just kept going back to Michael and the brothers. And I was like, I get it, guys. But like,
well, it also was weird because like, this didn't make sense to me, because I totally agree with what you're saying. And Joe Jackson kept saying like, your family is important. And he kept saying these things that I'm like, yeah, that's true. But like, there's none of that in the movie. And it's also coming from the antagonist of the film. Like I would almost rather have Michael, I mean, since it was about family, like, I don't know, it needed to be, he needed to find out what, like his arc almost needed to be that his family helped him to go out on his own. And that's what the family did for him.
Yeah.
Right. Like his family, it isn't about staying in the group. It's about reaching your potential. Right. And his family could have had a different part in playing this, because his dad is using family to manipulate him, when maybe his brothers are using family to encourage him to go out and do that. But maybe that wasn't it. But it also was just kind of a weird dynamic. Like they're in the background, but I see what you're saying. Like it's like, we got to keep going back to the Jackson 5. It's like, they're not characters. I don't know.
The climax of the film happens while he's on tour with his brothers.
Yeah, it is. And and I'm like, I don't even know who these characters are. I don't know about Tito. I don't know about Jermaine. Like for the movie, I'm saying the movie didn't spend any time with them,
right,
for us to really like root for them, or to have them like try to encourage, like it was, it was a weird dynamic. The whole family thing was weird.
Another problem this movie has too, and it's a tough problem to solve, because it's like, hey, maybe that's just how other people's experience. But there's the big glaring controversy that obviously the movie is just like not probably going to get into, and there's a whole legal question over that. But like Michael as a character in this film is like pretty spotless. Like he is like, he's just like the only thing he struggles with is being direct. Is like advocating for himself and like communicating directly with his father, and just like being like,
he can't fire people, and he can't have hard conversations.
But he's just like, the way he's portrayed as a character is just as kind of like an unimpeachable heart of gold sweetheart. Like he just always has time for his fans, always has time for people in need. His whole goal in life is to like make people happy and to help people. And maybe that is just when, like, if you, maybe his brothers and the people who had the creative control over the film, maybe their genuine experience of him was like, that's true. But it seems like something that's another trope of this genre is like the kind of warts and all portrayal of like, we're going to show you the myth on stage, the art and like the artist, but then we're going to show you behind the scenes how they were maybe a little like they cheated on partners or drug abuse or the way that they, and there is stuff in here like you talked about, like the story of the song Billie Jean, where it's like, what's going on there with this like potential debate over fathering an illegitimate child, maybe, who like someone's claiming that like what there's stuff that could be explored, and it feels like the family is either deliberately sanitizing, because here's one thing that the living members of the band Queen didn't do is they didn't fully sanitize the life of Freddie Mercury. They definitely were willing to explore some of the but I would even say that's also a problem with is I think they could go further with it in that film too. Like I like the movie Rocket Man because I like that Elton John's there to say, hey, I will push more the narrative of like my drug addiction and I want to frame the movie around that.
I haven't seen that. I need to see it. I want to see Rocket Man.
Pretty good movie, you know, and it's you know, it's a kind of it's another like in movie musical the same way that Better Man is. And it, you know, it's solid, but but yeah, I like it's tough when you've got a main character that's just presented as like there's nothing wrong with him. And there's even when any obstacle that he meets in this film, he overcomes it immediately. And maybe that's the element that's like, but maybe that's the thing that's stylized is Antoine Fuqua and Jonathan Logan are just saying, we want to portray a character who is just gliding over these obstacles. Just move. The only obstacle he seems to keep running up against is Joseph Jackson, and that's the only thing that he can't seem to like get over, and like his own loneliness, his own just feeling of separation from society. But when it comes to like his personal and artistic goals in his career, he's just like, he's like, you know, he goes to that meeting with Mike Myers and he's like, get me on MTV, and Mike Myers is like, I can't, and he's like, yeah, you can, try harder, and then he's like, okay.
And he's like, that was that's funny. I think too that he oh man, I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought, but I
was just talking a lot.
No, you're totally fine. The other thing that was an interesting part that they kept driving home is the fact that he never grew up. Like he was a constant child. They have him in his room a lot, and that seems to be intentional. And they you know, like he's always at the toy store and he never has any friends to play with. When he was a kid, they show he never had any friends to play with. And it just, he stayed in this perpetual child state, which I kind of felt like was like they're like trying to give a reason for why he was strange. Because Michael Jackson was strange. He was a strange guy. I mean, you cannot deny the things that he said, the things that he did. They were very strange. And it's almost like, well, he never really grew up, so he was perfect and he had a horrible dad and he just wanted some friends. And it was kind of I don't know, it was kind of a weird, it also just felt so isolated. The movie felt like half of it, I think I said this earlier, the movie felt like half of it took place in his room. Like it was
but maybe that's also something that was true of the people were like, he was kind of cut off from other people because he was just weird, or because you're right, he is a strange person. But that's also, I said this in my first thoughts too, that it's like the movie works against all odds the same way that his career did, where it's like it's not that weird people becoming famous is abnormal. Like we like a weird pop star. Like we you know, our pop stars to have something, a gimmick. We like that, like Chappell Roan is sort of doing drag when she performs, and Lady Gaga is doing her thing and has this whole persona. And we like some weirdness, but we also sort of like, we understand that it's part of a character. But Michael Jackson was like weird in a way that it's all these ways that like should not have worked, especially at that time. They were deliberate transgressions of traditional masculinity in a community that doesn't really typically embrace that, but there were like he and Prince were both sort of doing this thing with like what it means to be a masculine black man. That were like, it was like masculinity can look and sound like this. It can be high voiced and soft and you know, and can move in this kind of gliding way, and you know, and the way that they dressed and the way and it's like that's a really it's just a very interesting thing because they weren't presenting themselves publicly as queer in any way.
No,
they weren't saying like, oh well, I'm a gay man, or like they were like, I'm a straight man who dates women, and this is how I'm presenting myself. And it's like but the fact that the entire world across all demographics, across all cultures went, yeah, you're the coolest person in the world. It defies all kind of like expectation.
It does. And even the scene when they're, what is it, Beat It, there he brings together some of the Crips and the Bloods, and he dances with them, right? Like, we were commenting how strange that was, because like you have this very traditionally effeminate you know, acting male, and all these guys are looking at him and like, oh yeah, he like, man, because he was so amazing at what he did, but defying all odds. He's just a personality that even though he's strange, you just are drawn to him. Because he kind of demands it, right? Like when he dances, you can tell he is the best dancer that has ever been, right? Like that dancer performer, and like there's just something that draws you to him, and it's against all odds.
If you think about the other guys in that vein that we grew up with, that were doing, like, you know, like Usher was like known for his dancing, and Usher like oozes a lot of traditional masculinity, and is bringing like a sexuality to his work that's like very clearly like aimed at the female gaze, and like all this, and it's in this like, or you know, someone like Justin Timberlake, or it's got a lot of like, even though like they're dancing and they're being smooth, it's still got this, or Bruno Mars or someone like, it's got a more traditional masculine thing going on. And when you have these other characters that these other films were made about, like Elton John or Freddie Mercury, it's like, well, the thing about Elton John and Freddie Mercury is that they were gay. And it's like, so they were actively trying to conceal that part of themselves for at least part of their career. But it's there. Once you know that about them, it's like, oh, it's there in the work. But the fact that Prince and Michael Jackson were like, no, this is what like we are straight, and this is how Michael Jackson especially, and the fact that the whole world went like, sure, absolutely, you know,
why would you question it? Like,
is really it's similar to this movie. It's like there's a lot of reasons why this shouldn't work, but it does. And I feel like in the first half of this conversation, I've been really trying to be really critical of the things that didn't really work for me with this film. But ultimately, like, what winds up happening in this movie, at least my experience of it, is like they managed to capture enough of the feeling of what it was like to grow up during the kind of apex of Michael Jackson's fame. And specifically Jaafar Jackson does such an astonishing recreation of Michael Jackson that you just sort of get swept up in the magic of it. Like get like, I was transported back to my childhood. In a really like visceral, magical way. Like our friend Jeff said, he was like, I almost started crying during Thriller just because I remembered the first time I watched that music video. And I was like, I almost started crying when he was doing Beat It, and he was teaching the choreography. And then like when he did the Motown performance, like I got emotional because I was like, I've watched this video so many times in my life, and I can't believe how accurately Jaafar Jackson is like bringing the energy of this. It was our friend Ryan said that he felt like he was looking at AI. He said it looked like
crazy
because it's that accurate.
And I mean, we've been really critical because I think there is a movie that could be amazing. That could be amazing for the performances and for the story. We didn't get that movie, but that doesn't mean this isn't a good movie, because it does work, and the performances really do, because Jaafar Jackson is so like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. Like he was so good, and you can see his progression, because the beginning of the movie, and also Giuliano Valdi, who
we can't
plays
forget
young.
about Giuliano
No,
Valdi.
awesome. Also, not really like a trained actor.
Yeah,
just awesome. Like does a great job, especially. I mean, when there's a scene where Joe Jackson beats Michael, and it's like I got that was disturbing for me because they played it so well, and then he goes and he cries, and I'm like, man, this kid is doing a great job. Like, he's really portraying the emotion, and he's giving a really great performance. So he does awesome too,
and his performances are incredible.
He's moving like Michael.
All I would say is, like, as great as he was, I was like, I wanted to get to Jaafar more sooner in the film, just so that we could
see him. And Jaafar Jackson, just like he killed it, and you see the progression of how good of a dancer he was into how great of a dancer he was. Like when he first does it, at first I was like, man, he's good, like he's really good. But then at the end of the movie, we get the full Michael Jackson.
The bad performance at the end, when it is cool that you watch Jaafar Jackson like become the icon, layer by layer by layer, and it's also like it's mixed with the plastic surgery, it's mixed with the changing of the hair and the outfits and the perfecting of the aesthetic and the look. And when he does that final performance, you're like, he has fully metamorphized into.
It's insane. And like his like dance moves, which I'm a horrible dancer, but they were so much more clean at the very end of the movie. And I was like, oh my gosh,
the facial expressions too.
And it was like, wow, like this was on purpose. Like his dancing was really good, but I was like, he's no Michael. But then when he gets to be Michael, I was like, no, that's him. Like that's I was totally blown away. And I think, I mean, his acting was great. Obviously the performances were amazing, but he pulled off the voice too, which the voice is really hard because Michael's, again, a strange voice. I remember there was a made-for-TV movie that I saw pieces of it about Michael, and I was like, nah, that voice. The actor just didn't really pull off the voice. But Jaafar Jackson pulls it off. He makes it feel like it's natural.
It's like spot on.
Yeah.
It's not just like a, like where it's like you listen to Timothy Chalamet doing Bob Dylan and it's like, close enough. Like, it's like, sure. Like, why not? It's like, but it's like, this is like, it genuinely, there are multiple shots where from the aesthetic and the sound of it, you're just like, no way that's not Michael Jackson. Like it genuinely feels like someone brought Michael Jackson back to life in the same way that Jim Carrey sort of felt like he was resurrecting the spirit of Andy Kaufman. I don't know if I've ever seen a biopic where the lead performance was this close. Usually it's just like Joaquin Phoenix is doing a pretty good Johnny Cash impression. Like what, like, you know, it's like you're watching someone do like a pretty good impersonation of a famous person.
Ray Charles.
Austin Butler's doing a pretty solid Elvis impression. Maybe Ray Charles is the only other one where like there are moments of that film where you're like, Jamie Foxx really does, his whole face and voice transforms into Ray Charles for like moments of that film. Jaafar Jackson, for most of his adult performance as Michael, is just like, I've never really seen anything like it. I think that's what makes this movie ultimately work, is as formulaic as it is, as by the numbers as it is, as thin as the plot can be, as repetitive as the Joseph Jackson stuff can get, as kind of clunky as the pacing can get. These central performances manage to be so magnetic and kind of astonishing. And that's sort of like, that's like most of what the There is about Michael Jackson, is just the performance of it is just like, I think if there's anyone that's watching this movie that was born after 1995 or after like the year 2000, this is a film that can help them understand like what it was about this, because you might watch it and go, how did this happen? How did a guy this weird, this strange, this idiosyncratic, this isolated and cut off from the world manage to do this? And this film gives you an idea of like, without knowing the details of the human being behind it or his inner psyche, you just get from just like the aesthetic of it and the presentation of the performance, it's like, oh, I see that. I see how the whole world was hypnotized by this. You know?
Well, and I have a question though. Do you think which we already talked about it, but do you think he's going to get nominated for an Oscar for this?
it's interesting. Like we walked out of the theater and everyone was like, well, they can't nominate him because of, but I was like, I don't know. Like it's a weird slot. It's sort of, we talked about this with the drama where it's like, if the Oscars, if it was November, I would say the drama is going to be nominated for Best Picture. It's going to be nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, all this stuff. But it's really early in the year, and oftentimes films like that are just forgotten by the time award season rolls around. It's still pretty early in the year.
Yeah.
But Jaafar Jackson's performance is so good. I don't think he has to win, but a nomination would make sense.
And I think he could. And it'll be very interesting to see how the Academy treats this movie. Because I have no idea how they're going to treat this movie. My thought is that they're not going to nominate it because of the controversy. Yeah. And I think they might not nominate him, but I think he deserves it. First of all, Jaafar Jackson is not Michael, so
I don't think this movie needs to be nominated for Best Picture. I don't think
it should be, but
I think Jaafar Jackson should be nominated for Best Actor.
I agree. Yeah, I think he should, and he was great. Like seriously, and I mean he is. I don't know if this really has anything to do with it because he still had to perform, but I mean, being his nephew, he at least got he has a personal connection, which I think drives him a little bit more. But also he kind of got to see a side of Michael that some of us never saw. And I think that I mean, I think it all works to his advantage, and he took advantage of it. So
it's sort of like Jason Scott Lee in the Bruce Lee movie from the 90s.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much.
Oh,
Dragon. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
And I love Jason Scott Lee's performance in that film. I think that he doesn't really look like Bruce Lee,
but it's hard to look like Bruce Lee.
I know,
man.
But he gets the vibe. He gets the vibe. He gets the, Jason Scott Lee's like jacked and that he's ripped in that movie. Yeah, that movie's awesome. But yeah, this I've never it really is like all the controversy aside. And it's not that I don't want to say that as in a way where I'm like, it doesn't matter. I feel like I don't want to dismiss like the experiences of, it's like, I think that story matters. And I think that like people should consider that story. I don't even necessarily really care about like the story of like Michael and Joe Jackson. I care more as a fan and as a person, as a choreographer and as a dancer who was inspired by Michael Jackson when I was young. I care more about like what this art did to culture and what it did to like generations of people. Billions of people around the world were, I mean, like, I feel like I'm never going to get to sit in a stadium and watch Michael Jackson live. And this movie got at the energy, like a fraction of what it must have felt like to experience the explosiveness of his like his energy as a performer and like what that art was doing to people around the world. And I think that there's like that's kind of what these films in their best form, these biopics, are hoping to do. I think is just capture the a part of the essence of the greatness of what made Elvis Presley so special, what made
right.
And when they can do that, when they can really, because even like Robbie Williams, where it's like, well, Robbie Williams is just some guy. They still like manage to get you with some of those songs where you're like, oh man,
oh yeah, totally,
they're really getting me with this one. Like this is, and it's like, he's got some bangers,
yeah, totally, yeah. There's but Jaafar was awesome. Should we get into our scores?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so on this show, we give a score for we give scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a score for technical rating. We give a score for the ending. We give a score for rewatchability. We have a score for cultural significance and impact. And we give a score for our subjective feelings. So Kramer, what is your technical rating for Michael?
My technical rating is a 6. And the biggest thing bringing it down is all the, just the pacing and the kind of the other things. The cinematography was good, but there were parts where I was like, oh, that looks like a digital camera. It didn't look that great. But for the most part. But I think also the thing that's bringing it up is the performances, like those Jaafar and just all the fun stuff that comes with that. So that's what I give it.
Yeah, I've got it at a 7, and it's I like it. That's a tough score for me because like there's two different things that we could be talking about when we talk about technical, which is like there's the technical aspect of what Jaafar Jackson had to do and what Giuliano had to do, and they get 10s. They get
totally.
They get 10 out of 10, and the technical aspect of sort of recreating the cinematography of some of these amazing dance sequences in the Motown performance and the Thriller music video and the Beat It music video, and that stuff is like top tier. But that other stuff is like, some of it's like not great, you know, at all, or it's just really bland. But I think that I'm giving it as much as I am because it's like, the reason why the movie works at all is because of the technical work of the performers. And so I'm like, okay, I'll average it out to, you know, like a C plus area. So how about the ending?
The ending I gave a 6. It pays off, but it also just kind of was like, I mean, I'm thinking of the ending of the story. The ending performance is awesome. But that's not really the story. So that's kind of what I'm giving a 6.
I get that. I gave it an 8 because I was just thinking like exactly what we were talking about. I really like the metamorphosis completing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Like watching him do the full bad performance on. I just was like, this is awesome. Like I would. Every time he was performing, I was just like, oh my gosh,
I know. Really,
he's so good.
You forget everything else.
And I like ending on a high note like that. But I agree that like the emotional climax of the screenplay is just sort of like, okay.
It's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
And he like barely looks his dad in the eye.
Yeah, I'd probably give that scene like a 6, and then I would give and
this is a funny movie because we can't change the scores for just this one, but the performance itself, like that was awesome. That was
uneven.
Exactly.
Uneven in the emotional climax of the screenplay, not great. The climax of like just like the last scene of the film, awesome.
Totally. Oh, amazing. Awesome. Absolutely amazing.
So how about the rewatchability?
Rewatchability, I gave a 7, and I could possibly just go higher, but I don't really want to rewatch the whole thing. I probably just want to rewatch the performances, you know?
That's what I'm talking about with like Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff. It's just like a movie where like I'm just sort of like, I don't really care about that screenplay. I think there are some fun musical sequences, and that's like this one's like at a 7 for me too, rewatchability, just because like the central performance is so. But it's kind of like I almost want to watch like a compilation of just every scene that Jaafar Jackson's in. And you know, and really I'm just looking forward to the second one because some of my favorite stuff for musically, I'm like, I gotta see The Way You Make Me Feel. I gotta see, you know, I gotta see Smooth Criminal. I gotta see you know,
Black and White.
I gotta see Black or White. I gotta you know, I gotta see I gotta see the halftime show. I gotta see like so, but I don't feel like I'm probably gonna, I don't know. How about cultural impact?
Cultural impact, I gave a 9 because it's making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just think Michael is the, you know, king of pop. He's always gonna be influential, like for a long, long time. So I think this movie is doing a lot, and I think it's also going to continue to be influential.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8. I think it's just like when we have the conversation about like separating the art from the artist and art, it's like, well, how good is the art? And I think Michael Jackson is one of those cases where it's like when you really sit down and spend some time with the art that was made, it's that good that you go like, geez, it's pretty good. It's like, it's making me like not even want, like, it's, you know, like, whereas like, I don't know, like, I think Woody Allen has some talent? Sure. But I'm personally like, I don't need to watch Woody Allen's movies. Like, I don't really care. Like, there are plenty of good movies I can watch. Do I think R. Kelly has some good songs? Sure. But I don't really care about R. Kelly's music. Do I think Diddy I don't know. I don't need to listen to any Diddy music.
Yeah.
Do I, you know, like these like different, I'm just kind of like it's the question of like, well, how good is the art? And Michael Jackson, it's a testament to how strong the art is, that everyone, like, knowing everything we know, this movie can come out and people can kind of be like, I'm going to go watch it. And everyone can kind of come out of it and be like, listen, that screenplay was barely good enough to carry the movie from beginning, middle, and end. But like the art is so good.
Right.
And the impact that it had on culture was so strong that the movie somehow works. And so, it's kind of the biggest thing. How about your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7.5. I mean, just the good parts are so good that I'm giving it, you know, like I had so much fun with that. I'm bringing it down for all the reasons we've talked about, but still, like, it was such a fun movie.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. 7.5, right on. I like we were so hyped coming out of the movie theater.
We were.
It's
fun.
Like, I have to be honest, as like just as like a fan of my analytical brain is just like, it's not a great movie. I get why it's got some flack from a lot of the critics, but I also get why audiences are devouring it, because it is,
I get it too.
It is a crowd pleaser. Like, it is just like, and if you just, again, we talk a lot on this channel about review the film that you saw, not the movie you wish you saw.
Right.
And we didn't see the movie from the driver's perspective, or the movie that takes it into a whole more, kind of stylized, trippy Baz Luhrmann area, or more of like a Michael Gracie, like, musical version. We saw kind of a straightforward, by the numbers biopic that the central performance is good enough that it made it pop off the screen.
And I mean, Spike Lee, he has a quote, I'm butchering, I can't remember what he said, but basically, like, listen, they wanted to make a film about Michael Jackson, the entertainer, and that's what they did. It's something along those lines, and he loved it. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that's true. You can't deny that I had a lot of fun with this movie.
Yep. And I was like, I was ready to be a hater too. Then, like, just through the whole movie, I was like, it's really entertaining.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Okay. Next week on the show, if you want to watch along with us, right now in theaters, I think it opens tomorrow. I think it
might be opening tonight.
Tonight.
It's Thursday.
Mortal Kombat 2. We're not watching Mortal Kombat 2. We're not going to the theater and watching Mortal Kombat 2. You can go watch it if you want. But what we are going to do is we're going to go back to our childhood, back to the 90s, and we're going to watch the real Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Okay? Mortal Kombat.
We're watching the OG one with Bridget Wilson, and that's the only actor that I can name from the movie. I unfortunately can't think of any of their other names, but the Liu Kang guy was the guy that was in Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley. And the guy that plays Shang Tsung has also been in a million things.
Yeah, I forget his name. And the guy who plays Johnny Cage. Oh, I should remember.
He was like a Tom Cruise lookalike, but
he's kind of like not Tom Cruise. Yeah. Bargain brand Tom Cruise.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, bargain. Temu Tom Cruise.
Temu Tom Cruise.
But we are going back and we are watching that Mortal Kombat movie. From our childhood. We're gonna see how it holds up. I don't like it's because I don't have a desire to go back and watch the remake Mortal Kombat that came out in like 2019 or whatever that this one is a sequel to. I don't really care about these movies. Whatever, if you like them, go ahead. But we're gonna do Mortal Kombat.
It's like 95, wasn't 95?
The other Paul Anderson. There's PTA and PWA.
Yeah.
Paul W. Anderson, who
Paul
had a
W.S. Anderson.
W.S. Anderson, who had a whole bunch of movies like this that were all like not great. But
no, he's it was 95 that it came out. But yeah, he did the Resident Evil. He did like 7 of those or whatever. So. Yeah.
Which is interesting because part of the reason why we want to talk about this movie is we want to talk about like video game movies, because Zach Kreger's next film is Resident Evil, which is I totally shocked me. I did not think that that's where Zach Kreger would go.
I know. It's strange. But I'm interested to see it though because of him.
Yeah. So if you want to watch along, let's go back in time. Let's watch Mortal Kombat together, and that's what we'll be watching. And we will see you then. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you the next time.
Bye-bye.